of the morning, Washington Commanders Nation. It's the first of the month, and Washington is still without a head coach. We are now 48 hours removed from being spurned and having our hearts broken by Ben Johnson when he decided to stay in Detroit. I hope by now everybody got that shit out their system, decompressed, and eyes on the prize, back on the mission. Washington needs a head coach. So I've been sifting through our remaining options. That's if we don't expand our list or cast our net even wider than the guys we've already interviewed. But based on the remaining crop of candidates that Washington has thoroughly vetted and interviewed twice, I have a new favorite, a new dog in the fight. And it's probably not who everybody thinks it's going to be. Everybody probably is leaning Dan Quinn right now. I'm going Mr. Anthony Weaver, assistant head coach, defensive line coach, Baltimore Ravens, for a few reasons. But he's on the fast track to become a head coach. I know we probably, before doing our research, all said this was the Rooney Rule interview. He was the first guy we interviewed, first virtual interview we took in the entire process. And his interview Monday was said to be very impressive, and it was for hours. And I started deep diving. You know, when I get a man crush, when I get a new infatuation, I like to deep dive, find every bit of audio, video, and what people have to say about this person. So just like I deep dive Ben Johnson's entire life, I spent the last day doing the same with Anthony Weaver, and he's easily my favorite candidate remaining for the Washington head coach. Take John Harbaugh's words himself. Anthony Weaver, you're not going to find a better leader, a better defensive coach than Anthony Weaver. He's going to be a head coach very soon. Makes sense because he's on that track in Baltimore. They just promoted him to assistant head coach last year. And this is what Harbaugh's saying about him, despite the fact that Mike McDonald was in that same room. This is a guy with plenty of experience. And he has that, you know, guys that used to play the game, players resonate with them deeply. He spent 7 years in the league. He's playing for the team. He's coaching for the team he played for. He's spent 4 years in Baltimore, 3 with the Houston Texans. He's worked for both of the teams that he played for. So he clearly has connections. He's clearly built rapport in the league. He started as a graduate assistant for Urban Meyer at the University of Florida in 2010. Then he moved up to linebackers coach at North Texas in 2011. Under Rex Ryan, he was the assistant D-line coach in 2012, the D-line coach for the Bills in 2013 under Doug Marrone. Spent a year as a D-line coach in Cleveland. He's been the D-line coach for half of the league, it feels like. He also was the defensive line coach for 3 years in Houston before getting a 1-year trial as the defensive coordinator and D-line coach the year Bill O'Brien got fired. So he didn't get a real year. Bill O'Brien was fired after 4 weeks, and he got a lame duck season as a trial defensive coordinator for the Houston Texans before being brought home to Baltimore as the D-line coach and run game coordinator for the defense before being promoted to associate head coach and D-line coach last year. This guy, when you listen to him speak, you hear it right away. He has a deep, commanding voice. He speaks very eloquently and articulately. He enunciates every letter of the words he speaks. He has a charming smile, and he has that captivating charisma when he speaks. He has that gravitas that I know he interviewed well. Like, I know a person that dazzles a room with personality, with articulate. I know a person who could kill an interview because I'm that kind of person as well. And it takes about 5 seconds listening to this guy speak to understand why he's an attractive option. You want a leader of men, you want a CEO type, you want someone to delegate roles and stick to a plan. This is your guy. I'm on Twitter at 3:00 in the morning at work, scrolling it, looking for every nook and cranny of Anthony Weaver information. And I find this video from the QB Collective. And the phrasing is going to sound very familiar. because the whole purpose of this video was to speak on how he loves that Baltimore has an aligned vision throughout the entire organization. An aligned vision. Yes, the same two buzzwords Adam Peters used 7 times in his introductory press conference when he was introduced as the general manager as the Washington Commanders. Anthony Weaver spent 2 minutes talking about why the culture in Baltimore is so different and how, unlike a lot of teams in the league, they have one aligned vision. They know exactly what they want. They know exactly what they want in coaches. They know exactly what they want in executives. And they know exactly what they want in players. And they stick to it. They never go off course. And they remain united with an aligned vision throughout their organization. That alone probably had Adam Peters doing cartwheels on Monday at his in-person interview. Adam Schefter tried to tell us that Ben Johnson may not be a lock, or he may not be the favorite in the Josh Harris ownership group in their coaching search. I will never doubt you again, Shefty. Had me talking crazy about you the other day. I apologize, my sir. I'm very familiar with your game, so I don't know why I ever doubted you, Adam Schefter. But there's a chance that even though Ben Johnson and Mike McDonald were the consensus favorite candidates for jobs, that they might not be seen as highly from the guys actually making the hire as us fans and the general public makes it seem. Because my boy Josh is down in Mobile. He told me he spoke to some guys down there because, everybody likes to talk. He's around all the NFL insiders, and he said the consensus opinion is that nobody knows what Josh Harris is going to do. He said they're very tight-lipped and nothing's leaking out of Washington. First things first, we should applaud that because that's a new day. Everything Dan Snyder did, we already knew the vibes because someone was talking about it in the building. We had moles, rats, and leaks for days, and they did it themselves at the top. It's a new day. Let's not hold our head down because we didn't get the guy we all wanted as fans. I know I loved Ben Johnson. He didn't want to come here, so fuck him. Best of luck of your endeavors here in Detroit. Let's bring in a leader of men since that's what we want, y'all. Y'all said we want a leader of men. This is your leader of men. Dan Campbell is the comp for Anthony Weaver as a coach. Diana Rossini reported that they see him as the Dan Campbell type. As owners search to build the right culture, a name that's come up in many conversations is Anthony Weaver. An NFL executive likened Weaver to a Dan Campbell type who has great discipline. We've seen Campbell successfully make the jump from assistant head coach, and Weaver, a former player, can bring that. There are a lot of parallels to Anthony Weaver and Dan Campbell, but there's also difference. So let me juxtapose the two for a second. Dan Campbell was one of the right-hand men of Sean Payton in New Orleans. He spent 5 years as the tight end coach and assistant head coach to Sean Payton in New Orleans. Anthony Weaver has over 10 years of defensive line coaching experience, a couple years as a assistant head coach and 1 year as a defensive coordinator. So he has that over what Dan Campbell had. I've seen people hired with less experience than this. So I don't want to hear he's never called plays on the defensive side as a reason to not give him this job. Y'all liked Raheem Morris? Well, guess what? Anthony Weaver is a 42-year-old, 12-year experienced coach with the personality, the charisma, the gravitas to lead an organization. And if I'm going to bet on somebody, I'm swinging big on a leader that has never had his first try, a leader that's never failed. I've never seen Anthony Weaver fail as a coach. He gets his first crack here in D.C. Guys like Dan Campbell get a chance. I'm telling you, the former player model, that resonates with players. Players immediately are drawn to guys who can draw them a map. You know, Ron's favorite line, but can he draw me a map? Ron wanted cartographers. He didn't want players. But anyways, back to Anthony Weaver. Anthony Weaver is the antithesis of Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera speaks in codes. Ron Rivera says things and has to walk them back the next day. This guy communicates and articulates so beautifully, you will never mix up anything he has to say. And he's now played for and coached for one of the world-class organizations in this league, in a specific team that our new owner and managing partner, Josh Harris, has a huge affinity for. He loves the Baltimore way of doing things. Why not poach the last guy on that track that's on that coaching staff? And speaking of Baltimore, I feel for them. They're going to find a way to shake back. But in one off season, let's say we hire Anthony Weaver as our head coach. In one off season, they done lost Mike McDonald, Anthony Weaver, Denard, and Zach Orr. They lost their entire defensive staff in one offseason if we hired this guy. But they're Baltimore, though. Eric DaCosta was mentored by Ozzie Newsome, one of the best executives in the business over the last 25 years. So the Ravens going to shake back. So let's poach the rest of what they got there. Get Anthony Weaver in the building. Give him the head coaching job. Name him. Let him get his staff in the building. Let him and Adam Peters put their head and put their connections that they've built throughout their careers together at their many stops around the league. And let's get the ball fucking rolling into 2024. I had my head down for a couple days because of Ben Johnson. We move on. If at first you don't succeed, you keep shooting shots. I want our shot to go to Anthony Weaver. I want this brother to get his first head coaching opportunity in this league with the Washington Commanders. And historically, he would be the first African-American head coach in the history of the Washington Commanders franchise. I don't play the diversity Olympics game. I don't want a guy to get hired just because he's black. But as a black man myself, that is something I am definitely cognizant of and something I would definitely be rooting hard for him to succeed. For example, I don't want EB getting this job and EB black as me. Don't want him touching this job. Don't want him anywhere near it. I want a restraining order put from Eric Bieniemy in our quarterback room. I don't want him anywhere near the second overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft. But Anthony Weaver, I think we may have something here. I know who Dan Quinn is. I've seen him fail. Let's give Anthony Weaver that same opportunity these other guys get. Aaron Glenn, he may be a guy too, but out of the remaining crop, Anthony Weaver's it for me. Go ahead, search up Anthony Weaver on Twitter and on YouTube and get lost in the rabbit hole like me, and you'll immediately see how infectious the personality is, the energy, the charisma, Riz as the kids call it. Fucking hate that word, by the way. My son and his friends kill me with that shit. But Anthony Weaver, Josh Harris, you want the Baltimore way? You want to bring that culture here? Pair him with Adam Peters and let's build us a winner. And let's come out of this on top, despite the fact that everybody thinks we've botched the process. I'm going to give Josh Harris and Adam Peters grace, and I'm going to let them have the benefit of the doubt until they prove me wrong. Ben Johnson hurt. Mike McDonald hurt, and a little bit Raheem Morris, but we could get our diamond in the rough, and we can get our culture changing Dan Campbell 2.0 and Anthony Weaver here in DC. Mike Tomlin is cut from the same cloth. If you knew about the Pittsburgh hiring process when Tomlin was hired, 99% of the world expected the Pittsburgh job to go to Russ Grimm. But there was this charismatic young man named Mike Tomlin who came out the cut and stole the job. Stole it. It be like that sometimes. We're the last team to fill our vacancy, and we may end up with a guy that we are never going to look. We're going to look back and say, the world had us fucked up, and we got the right guy, even if we got him last. Anthony Weaver, my new favorite and new leader in the clubhouse to be Washington Commanders' next coach. I hope it's you, my guy. Fingers crossed. Keep Dan Quinn average ass in Arlington, Texas. Let's rock with Anthony Weaver. Until next time, hail to the Washington Commanders. As the news comes out, the content will be coming right after it. Until next time, deuces.